Karim, what is your main concern?
Quanto mi dai?
Not much.
5, 6, quanto c'ho?
6, 7.
Ok, perfetto. Sorry, as a good Italian, I was trying to negotiate my time because you know we speak much more than the others. So, so look, when I was thinking and Fabio was sending us the first ideas, I was really trying to understand what we were looking at, and the fact that our sector changed so much in a few years that when we talk about competition, first of all, we need to select that what are we talking about as a market. Okay, because are we looking at the telecom market? Are we looking at the media market? Are we looking at the messaging market? Are we looking at, so what are we doing about it? And then I was looking at our main market obviously is US, Mexico, Latin America on the consumer one, and the rest more on the business. And when you think to it, today cable companies offer a voice service. I would say, I don't like calling them OTTs, but OTTs will offer you messenger service, will offer you TV. I have that all the time. I don't know how many of you have, how many applications do you have to receive messages? Today, you have WhatsApp, you have Telegram, you have Signal, you are your normal text. My mother loves Messenger, so I'm making a little of an advertising for my friend here. And at the end, you lose some of the messages because of all these different platforms. But the reality is that every person tries to use it. Social media is more and more used also to try to talk between direct messages and general one. So what I want to see is really competition is going in a different way. So when we talk about convergence, we also need to see all this. How many people calling you via WhatsApp compared to a normal phone? You probably don't see the difference, but the operator sees it because it's a different way of managing it. So the reality is that one of the most important things that we have been looking at is really how this platform evolved. Obviously, competition remains key, okay? So having a regulator that is able to work and to really impose a competitive measure in markets that are non-competitive are essential. I look at my great friend Adriana there for that. So there is some work to do in a lot of markets to ensure that there are enough competition between players. But competition is not only on the number of players present of the market, it's really on how much real choice the consumer have between the different players for the same kind of similar kind of service. Maybe we will go in a world in the future where people will choose to have one specific operator doing everything. And I think this is what really we are looking at. When we look where the market is evolving, the main issue people are really desiring, are consuming, is video. Okay? On whatever platform they're looking at, you can think to VOD, you can think to Facebook, you can think to YouTube. Whatever you think to, video represents 50% of our traffic today. But not even that, it represents 75% of the increase is coming from video. And this is something that you have to look at all the time when you think at what your consumer want. And AT&T, you all know it as a telecom provider. So it's also how Fabio started. We see ourselves now as a totally different company. In the last 3 years, we have been transforming totally, first acquiring a company called DirecTV in order to answer to a competitive issue we have. Because we had a very small IPTV business and we were not able to make certain deals. So we had to buy DirecTV in order to have those number of consumers in order to negotiate deals with some of the content owners. Then we decided that we wanted to change also the way content was distributed because we know exactly what our users want because they tell us what they want. And we were not able probably to really being able to make deals, so we decided to try to acquire Time Warner. I thank Agustin because it was very positive what he was saying on the Time Warner side. The European Commission has done a very great and fast job on it. We're just finalizing the approvals, but this is a way for the company to transform itself. So we are moving from a company where I joined 10 years ago that were doing pure telecom to a company today that it's a mix and is going to compete between the normal communication up to the distribution and the production of content. And this is important because the market changed. And we are looking at different markets today compared to what we were looking only 5 years ago. So where do you think the market is going to be in the next 5 years or next 10 years? That's every time the challenge we will all have to see. Some other players have decided to take a totally different line than us and are looking at other sides of the market, and this is the beauty. Okay? But everything is based on the basis of competition. Because at the end, what we can see today is that in places where market is competitive and where users have the choice, users are the ones that are creating the push for companies to continue to develop new services and to invent new business model. Market where one player is still dominant or really dominant are much more complicated for the small players in order to push this agenda. So that's where the regulator, in my opinion, will have to go more. But the reality, what is the basis of all this? And you know what AT&T is going to say on that, but investments, network, capacity. The reality is that you can develop whatever business model you want, but you will still have to have the best network and to be able to give the best capacity for your user. At the end, the user more and more today are selecting compared to the quality. Price is an important factor, but quality is an essential factor too. And this is the beauty. It's good for my friends of Ericsson, it's good for other companies, but the other beauty is other companies are also coming to invest. There is more and more capacity. The so-called OTTs that I hate as a word because I think we're all OTTs, by the way, today. But the so-called OTTs are starting to create a lot of also backbone production, fiber optic, submarine fiber optic to create even more capacity. So it's not related only to what the telecom players are. We are an ecosystem that is growing, and the most important is to find a way to work together. I like talking about services, and maybe, Fabio, we can look about that. Talking about not competing sector, but competing services. And that will help us, because I think the paramount problem that we have in front of us and that policymakers have, and we've been talking with Juan Manuel for many years now, is not so much how I can regulate the specific telecom, the specific media, and a specific sector, is how we are going to look to competing services. And services is the key word. And when we think about modernizing our regulatory packages, and this is a decision, the discussions we have all over the world today, from Latin America to Asia to Europe, we are all discussing about this. But just because the industry changed so fast, we will have to look at that. Some services or some sectors are much more competitive. Some others, are developing, are starting, like Augustine said. There are sectors that you have to be careful because you think that you have a dominant player today, but potentially that dominant player is going to be changed by a technology shift and not only by pure regulation. So we believe a lot in looking at the regulator, empowering the regulator so they can analyze carefully the markets, but try to look at the market in a convergent world. Convergence is not only operators buying each other. Convergence is... C'ho ancora 30 secondi. Convergence is really about trying, who is going to be my main competitor today? So the new company that will be, I hope, AT&T, Time Warner. Who is our main competitor tomorrow? Is it my typical American Mobile, Telefonica, and etc. in my sector? Is it my Facebook, Google's, or Apple? Is it a new company that is just going to come? And this is the challenges I think that most of our policymakers will have tomorrow, is being able to set some rules that are flexible enough not to hinder the development of the market, but also not let developing huge dominant position that will be difficult to shift at a certain point and where heavy interventions will have to come.